I got my camo hat on.
You do.
For Colorado.
Getting in the moment.
That's right. Let's get outdoorsy in this episode. Does anybody know where Castle Rock is?
Well, they're going to right now.
You're going to tell them.
Yeah, it's in Colorado.
Outside of the Mile High City. And I got to say, the air really is different there.
Oh, it is 100% different. Yeah.
It's exhaustingly different. When I could see why football teams go to Colorado to play the Denver Broncos.
And get beat.
And lose in the playoffs. Yeah, I can see it.
Do you think they should not do that home field advantage then during the playoffs? That's not really fair, is it? They should go somewhere else.
You know what? If you're going to win the games and get into the playoffs, you earned the right. So maybe show up to Denver a week early, get those laps in, get those reps in, and get used to the air. Anyway, we're doing Castle Rock, Colorado. Let's get it.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey listeners, ever wonder what it would be like to blow up your comfort zone at the tender age of 50? Well, we did just that. When our last kid went off to college, we hit the road in search of a new hometown. Now we bounce from city to city and bring you along for the ride. This is the Skip Town All-Stars podcast.
What's up, All-Stars? Welcome back to the studio that we are in New Haven, Connecticut. New Haven, great town.
We're having a blast.
Yes, we are. Special thanks to Chris Elliott, who has hosted us today in his studio here at Freestyle Gospel LLC. If you are so inclined to get that Holy Spirit up in you and hear some gospel music, highly recommend checking out Chris's websites and his socials, because we're going to put it in the liner notes today. And it's been awesome to be here in New Haven in his studio having fun.
Yeah, so if you are watching us on YouTube, it looks a little different. We're not in a hotel room.
We look kind of professional, actually.
I love it. And Chris is here with us playing engineer again. So this is really fantastic.
Yeah, and there's not like a $12 framed print behind us that you would normally find
in a hotel.
In a Residence Inn or whatever.
For sure, yeah. So we just may not leave.
We may not leave, yeah. I don't know. Chris has a lot of other family obligations, so I don't know. He's probably going to chase us out of here soon. So let's get busy. Let's talk about Castle Rock. We talked about Colorado. You have spent some time there. Obviously, in our last episode, we discussed everything that's going on with your mom. Mm-hmm. So let's just jump into it. You've been there a lot more than I have, but I have been there a few times.
Yes, and we have had several viewers reply to our travels and say, hey, Colorado might be a great place for you to live. Have you ever thought about Colorado? And my answer has always been the same. No, because Colorado's too expensive. So we finally decided, after visiting Colorado more than once, that let's do an episode about it. And we've been to Castle Rock, Colorado several times. So I've seen it from 20 years ago to now. I've seen the changes. I've seen the boom that has hit Castle Rock. It used to be a quiet little sleepy town. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
So let's get right into it.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know, between Denver, which is about 800,000 residents, right? Something like that, roughly 700, 800,000, something like that.
A big city.
Yeah, and Colorado Springs, which is another 500,000.
Yeah, it's crazy because
two kind of major cities.
Yeah.
Nestled right between there is a town called Castle Rock. I hesitate to use the word town because, like you said, it has exploded in the last several years. They're roughly just under 100,000 people. I think it's like 88,000 people or something like that.
I laugh at your description of Denver and Colorado Springs because Denver was always the city.
It was always Papa Bear.
Always. I mean, you had Boulder, but it was always Denver. And now you have Colorado Springs popping up. So Colorado Springs is in a close second to being the next big city near Castle Rock. I mean, not a close second. It actually is. But when people say Colorado Springs, most think, oh, it's a small town. No, it's almost the size of Denver.
It is. I mean, there was a time where I think everybody just affiliated Colorado Springs with there's a military base there.
Yes.
And so everybody was just like, oh, there's a college and there's a military base, and that's kind of it. Not anymore.
No.
I mean, it's basically all the people who can't afford to live in Denver, I guess, or have moved into that whole area. But there's a section of Colorado Springs that's untouchable now.
Oh, Colorado Springs is so expensive, but we're not talking about Colorado Springs.
We're not.
Our experience has been with Castle Rock.
We're done with you, Colorado Springs. That's all you're going to get.
Yeah. Castle Rock, the allure of Castle Rock always was, it was this little hidden town outside of Denver.
Yeah, it was a pass-through basically on the freeway.
Yes. This cute little town now has houses starting at $669,000. So if you've never heard of Castle Rock, you're going to now. It has exploded to the point where acres and acres of land that would just be for hiking, for mountain biking, for camping is now all developed. It's really crazy. I remember a time when I would go visit Castle Rock and it would be trees. It would be beautiful mountains. And now you're on the freeway and all you see are developed housing
subdivisions
areas,
everywhere.
subdivisions. It's like pre-planned. It's like, I think that's the right word. Like
so.
Planned developments. But nobody seems to care that the land is taken up and you don't have much property, because the whole purpose of moving to Colorado was you'd get a lot of land with your house.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Castle Rock was also one of those places, but not anymore. People are living in little tiny lots with monstrosities, like 3 levels in a little tiny lot.
It's interesting because when you are driving down the highway, you see developments on either side. I mean, just being rubber stamped, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Like it's like they have a house punch or something like that. And there's pop, 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 houses everywhere. What I find interesting about Castle Rock is 2 things. Number one, the downtown has maintained its charm, or in some cases has even seen upgrades, obviously.
Yeah, it has, for sure, seen upgrades.
But in addition to that, it doesn't seem like the size of a little downtown Main Street area that can support 84,000 people.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up, because if you look up things to do in Castle Rock, do you know what the number 2 thing is to do? I tell you,
Hiking's got to be number 1.
number 1 is the hiking. Do you know what the number 2 is?
Mountain biking.
Outlet mall.
Outlet malls.
The outlet mall is number 2 on almost every single list. If it's not number 2, it's number 3. So people aren't going to the downtown area of Castle Rock. They're going to the outlets. That is the big draw, which to me is so crazy because, well, if you've listened to our show, then you know we're more of like the Main Street type of couple. So I have never been to their outlets, and I've been there several times. I didn't even realize they existed until recently, but they are.
Well, everybody asks about them, like
it's unbelievable.
When you say Castle Rock, it's sort of synonymous, right?
With the outlets, they're like, oh, they're by the outlets. Do you go to the outlets? I'm like, why would I go to the outlets? Like, I want to go to the downtown and like go to Minnie's Diner. But yeah, so you're right. The reason you're not seeing the influx of people in the downtown with a resident rate of 80,000 is because 60,000 of them are at the outlets.
Maybe, or they're just, I think there are a lot of people who drive into either Colorado Springs or Denver to work. So we looked up the median income in Castle Rock.
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't support the house prices you were talking about earlier, but let me get into it. I feel like, okay, so the median household income is 86,000. Single income is 35, 36.
Okay, so hold on.
I don't know who's living in these houses making 35,000 a year.
What's crazy is if you look this up, because I was curious, like my brother's living there. He's retired. I think
he's had his house a long time though.
He has.
We should be clear.
I still think the place is too expensive for him. Like, I mean, when you go to have breakfast there, it's not cheap. We're talking LA prices in a town in Colorado. I bought a cake for a birthday. It was $60. Like that's an LA.
We paid $60 for that cake.
Yeah. But did you see the gold on it? It was really nice. Yeah. It was like
For a
4
cake.
layers. I know. Well, yeah. We haven't paid that in a long time. We haven't paid that in like a year.
We will never pay that again.
We might if we go back. Okay, but my point is that the prices are very similar to LA prices. So when you found the median income of 85,000, I think, I had to look that up.
I mean, it's just one website, but I go to bestplaces.net.
I know.
I'm not doing an ad for them or anything, but that's,
No, I know.
I use them all the time because whatever you're getting on there is going to be this comparable to whatever you're getting for all the cities
I
we
totally
visit.
get it, but I was just surprised by that. And then I found other sites that said the median was 120, 113.
That would make more sense.
Right? Wouldn't that, considering that the house
Absolutely.
prices are 600,000? I mean, It's crazy how expensive this place is. And then I had to think about what do these people do for a living? Because whenever you stumble across a town like this, it happened for us in Bernie, where the houses start at $1 million. Never heard of this town, Bernie, Texas. What do these people do for a living? So, you did a little research, you find out a lot of them are in medical profession, lawyers,
Sure.
accountants coming from San Antonio. In Castle Rock, it's tech
There's a bit of a tech
and math.
sector there. Yeah.
Everything was math and tech.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, obviously are good incomes
Yes.
when you reach a certain level in your career.
It's true. And then what comes with that, like looking into, and actually, if you go to Castle Rock, it's so apparent. It's not a single person's city. There are families everywhere.
There are, but don't you think, I don't know. I mean, at the coffee shops, there seem to be plenty of young people there, not necessarily paired up.
I saw baby strollers everywhere I went. I was like, oh, another baby stroller.
Well, that does make sense because when we're talking about all those subdivisions and developments, you're talking suburban life.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
And you're talking usually, I mean, to buy those houses, generally speaking, you're going to need 2 incomes.
Yeah, that is true. But the whole name Castle Rock, because I've talked about outlets being number 2.
Yeah.
The number 1 thing to do in Castle Rock is hiking.
To Castle Rock.
To Castle Rock.
Makes sense.
All right, explain what Castle Rock is.
Castle Rock is a rock formation. You can see it from the entire region. It's actually pretty primeval, I will say. It does look like a castle. It looks like a fortress sitting up on top of a mountain.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. I mean, the landscape around there is beautiful. Once you're outside of the subdivisions and you're looking around, there are meadows. I mean, it's really intriguing because you are a mile above sea level, at least. Mm-hmm. I think there are portions of Castle Rock that are even higher. But you have these like green fields, you have trees, it really is a gorgeous landscape in the parts where you can actually see the landscape.
I know it is, and there are parts when you climb Castle Rock. So my brother and I went hiking one day. He's like, "Let's go to the top." I couldn't make it. And
you got winded because of the altitude, or because of the hike, or both.
I don't know, but we got halfway there, and I looked at him. I said, "I can't do it." And I said, "I can do it." These are my words. I can do it. I don't think I want to do it. And I hardly ever say that. Like I'm like, "Yeah, let's try it."
Yeah, normally you go for it.
Yeah, I couldn't do it, and everyone in the family's done it. I mean. Mia went to go visit Castle Rock.
Yeah.
Her friend lives there. She's done it. You've done Castle Rock, haven't you?
I've never done Castle Rock, actually.
Oh.
I've done the trails around your brother's house.
Okay.
But the day you guys went, I was having my own Castle Rock experience at a local workspace, a virtual office. It's funny because for the amount of tech that's in that entire area that's sort of springing up or what have you, I went to a place that wasn't really catering to remote working, to be honest.
Is that crazy?
It was. I mean, I made an arrangement. A lot of times I'm working with companies on the West Coast, which requires me to not get booted from a place at 5 p.m. in some other time zone. And sure enough, they said, yeah, you're good and your fob will work. And we worked out a price and everything. I was paying more. And
then you got locked out.
I got locked out. Yeah, I went to go to the bathroom. I came back and all my stuff was inside and I was outside. And there was a little bit of a panic. I couldn't reach anybody. They were very, I wouldn't say there was a matter of fact the next morning. They did not even acknowledge that I had a problem the night before.
That's awesome customer service.
Yeah, I cannot recommend Craft Workspace very much. And there's another workspace there I ran into, I called because I obviously after getting locked out, I wasn't happy. And that person never called me back. So
you're 2 for 2, right? Is that 2 for 2?
I'm 0 for 2.
Oh, 0 for 2.
I'm 0 for 2.
Okay,
so
right.
If you are interested in opening up a virtual workspace with high-speed internet and want to try and make some money in that region,
Castle Rock is a place for you. The leases
I can only imagine the leases.
Okay.
Really expensive.
Rents is like $2,400 there a month for a 2-bedroom.
A 2-bedroom apartment?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So a lease is going to be even more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You may have to get a garage.
I don't know. I just don't know if the remote working industry in Castle Rock
will sustain it.
No, because I think anybody who's working remotely is already living in a house there, clearly.
Right.
So anyway, moving off of that, let's get into demographics a little bit.
Yeah.
Castle Rock is what?
It's 80% white.
Okay.
And like 12% Hispanic. and the rest is
just marginal percentages.
So there's not a lot of diversity there, and there's not a lot of poverty there. It's like
Clearly.
they have 3% poverty level.
A 3-bedroom, a 3+2 there is you gave the average 684.
Yeah, that's
there are some really old houses there, and there's some really small like cottagey type houses.
Yeah.
But for the 4-bedroom house, you're talking well over 7 figures, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, but let's set the landscape. Like when you come into Castle Rock, you're literally driving on hills and mountains, and some houses have rock formations in their backyard because they're sitting on.
Your brother has one.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
They're sitting on a mountain. My brother lives in an average neighborhood. His lot is maybe 12,000 square feet, maybe. I'm thinking. And his neighbor's lot is probably the same. So there's not a lot of property, but what you do have is beautiful rolling streets. And I can't say hills because everything is pretty developed, but on some parts of these neighborhoods, you can just go a few blocks and find yourself on a hiking path. I mean, that's pretty darn incredible when you can do that. So there's that allure of like, I can still have nature right at my fingertips, even though
for sure,
it's really developed. My brother's particular neighborhood is one of the originals, and it's not as overly developed, but even in the overly developed neighborhoods, they still offer walking paths, bike paths. You're not going to get maybe that woodsy feel, but the landscape certainly allows for outdoor adventure. And just like an hour and a half away is Royal Gorge, which is where you can go whitewater rafting.
Oh, yeah.
So you have this cute little town, Castle Rock, nestled around mountains. I mean, if you stand in Castle Rock and just look around, you're looking at mountains. Then you have all the neighboring areas around it. And depending on where you want to live, I do think you have some variety. I mean, Castle Rock is a place where you need money. So, we're not hiding that fact. You need to have some money. So if you want to live in an area that has a little hustle and bustle, but you still want to be in nature and you've got the money to afford it, then Castle Rock really is for you. Now, if you venture out of Castle Rock, even just 20 minutes, you're going to hit that now as wide open spaces. Like you're going to hit houses with 15 acres. I mean, like 15 acres. This is like the Colorado in your dreams.
The Renaissance Fair. What's the name of that place?
Larkspur.
So on the way out there, that whole way, I mean, just massive ranches.
So that's, if you're thinking of that Colorado, that's a different Colorado. That is a little bit more out away from the city of Castle Rock. Yeah. But I have to tell you, those houses are not cheap. Like now you're going into $1 million and plus.
Because of all the acreage and everything that usually comes with them. Yeah.
It's not let me just tell you, Colorado is not the Colorado of your dreams 25 years ago.
Right.
The Colorado of your dreams 25 years ago was getting a house on 10 acres for a couple $100,000. Those days are gone. They're never, ever coming back. Those houses are now $1 million plus. And there could be a double wide 15 acres down the road. It's very much like most places we have visited that have money. They don't care. They want that property. They want to be able to walk outside their house and just see mountains.
And not see people.
Yes.
I can relate.
Can you?
Not really.
I mean, you want that. You want that, but we don't have it yet.
Yeah. I would miss friends. If friends had to drive 30 miles through rural terrain to come see me, I think they would be less inclined to visit as often.
I think you're right. When you make it hard for your friends to come visit, they're not going to visit because it's hard just to get your friends to visit when you're like right next door.
It's true. You got to make a day of it when you're living out that far. Like people are like, okay, it's going to take us 45 minutes to get there each way. And if we're going to have a couple drinks, then we're going to be there 5 or 6 hours because we can't get back on the road right away.
You've got to be worth it. I don't think we're worth it.
I'm definitely saying we are not worth it.
I don't think we are. I mean, we're trying to make it like where people will come visit and make it easy, but I don't know if they're going to. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So
I just don't think you pick a property like that and expect a lot of visitors,
I don't think you pick a property like that and
want a lot of visitors.
Exactly.
It's true.
Exactly. So I think the beauty of a town like Castle Rock, and Castle Rock is one of many towns in Colorado where you can get kind of the downtown feel that you have of a cute like a cute main street.
Yeah.
Like there's no lie. It's an adorable main street. And you just venture out 15, 20 minutes and there are houses on acres and acres of property. And while you're driving, you don't see the next house.
There's a lot to look at. I mean, I will say to your earlier point that you probably are not more than a mile or 2 miles at the most away from a walking trail of any sort going up into the mountains. So I know all these.
Are you talking about
these planned community? No, I'm talking about like all the communities, surrounding areas. Like you can see trees and greenery and meadows and rocks and mountains and all that stuff. You can see all that from any one of these subdivisions. So I would just think, well, I would hope that if they're going to plan these communities, that they also plan some sort of trailhead where people can actually go and get exercise, you know?
It looks like it. I mean,
and enjoy nature.
Yeah. I mean, the ones we drove through, they definitely had that. Like you could park your car, even though there was like a planned community to our left, you could park the car in a parking lot to your right and like go into a small forest. I mean, they've decimated so much. That's the sad part. Like when you drive through Castle Rock, I mean, I said to my brother, they've decimated so much. And
That's true.
And he said, but people want to live here. And I'm like, yeah, but at what point do you stop destroying your environment? Like I remember going up to Castle Rock, the rock formation, and hiking it years ago and looking down and seeing so much more landscape. And you're right. When you do look down, you still see mountains, you still see tops of trees, but darn, if you don't see so many houses now.
Yeah.
And like planned communities and streets that were never there. So that just is, it's hard to see in a state that is supposed to be all about nature when you're like, I see less nature.
Oh yeah. Speaking of nature, is there like a zip line park or something nearby there?
There is. I don't like zip lining. So no, I did not.
You don't? You didn't go with us when we went in Mexico?
No, I think it's the most dangerous thing
ever.
You
sat back that day.
They snap all the time.
They don't snap all the time.
They do.
I'm a big boy and I've done a lot of zip lining.
You should stop.
I trust them. So I don't know. I'd be inclined to check out the zip line park near Castle Rock. It would be something fun to do. I will say that the downtown, there are a lot of little shops and restaurants there. I went into, I forget the name of it, but it's a record store. I was looking through eras of vinyl while I was there. One of my favorite coffee shops that I've encountered is actually there in Castle Rock.
Really?
It's called, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's COFF33 Coffee.
Okay.
And I thought it was a great cafe. It had lightning fast internet there, faster than the place I rented.
Oh, geez, you should have picked up.
I know. I should have just stayed there.
No,
I should have just stayed there. If I didn't take up so much real estate, I think they would have let me stay there all day. There are breweries downtown.
There are.
But I do acknowledge that if you are the type that wants to live in a suburban development community, if you like that sort of vibe and you have kids and you can get a brand spanking new house that's gorgeous, right? Those houses are gorgeous.
They are.
If you like that sort of thing, then I don't know, maybe, and you make that kind of money, then Castle Rock may be worth that look for you because, you know, there's plenty to do. The downtown is so safe. The police department's right there.
Oh, yes.
And the schools are very good there, I'm told.
Oh, yeah. Everyone talks about the
That's
schools.
why the property values are so astronomical, I bet.
Absolutely. My brother had asked me, why don't you and James consider Castle Rock? Like just not in the downtown area of Castle Rock or near the main street, but like 20 minutes out where they have acres and acres. We drove through it many times and he said, you get the property here you want. You're close to downtown Castle Rock. Why would you not consider it? Me, for two reasons. It has winter and it snows. Like they have winter. So if you've been listening to the show, then
they have like bulldozer winter.
They do. And those houses look frightening because those driveways are really long. Some of them are gravel. I'm not, if you've been listening to the show, then you know that I don't want to live in winter like that. So that for me was a downside. But the other downside was even if I was a winter person, we couldn't afford it. I was telling my brother, I said, do you know how expensive these houses are with like 10, 15 acres? And he must think we're rich because he knew, because he freaking knew. He goes, yeah, I know. They're like $1 million plus. I was like, okay, well, that's a little out of our budget, George.
even if we could, I just, like we're at a point in our lives, like why would I buy a house for that much? In 10 or 12 years, I don't want to be paying a $6,000 or $7,000 a month mortgage. That's ridiculous.
Well, you're asking why we would buy a house there. Why would we buy that? We wouldn't have that mortgage because we're not, I don't know. We're not, well, one, we haven't fallen in love with a place that much to like even think about that. Two, you're right. We're getting older. We don't want to have $1 million mortgage, but also anybody that's buying a house there with all that acreage and just wants to look at the mountains, they're doing it because that's what they want to wake up to. So it's worth the $1 million price tag.
Absolutely. I totally get
they're
that.
getting
If I
what
were in
they're
my
paying
30s
for.
and I was making a good living and I could afford a house there, I wouldn't want to live as close to my neighbors as some folks there do. But if I could get what I wanted there, I totally get it. Even if it cost me, 7 figures, I understand that. I guess, I don't know, like we're at a point in our lives where it's like, I value traveling too much.
Yes.
And it's just, that would seriously crimp our traveling budget.
And for us, would it be worth it? Like when you think about it, like, okay,
No.
if it wouldn't, would it?
No, because the kids will come and visit. Sure.
No. Would
There's
the property be worth it? Would the place be worth it? That's what I'm asking.
I do suspect there are places in Colorado. You're not as open to Colorado as I am. I just don't think it would be there because I would be sort of living with a little bit of anxiety that like at any point they're just going to put an entire community above me on the mountainside, They're just going to like
okay, I never
put
even
a dirt
thought of
road
that.
in and all of a sudden all the heavy equipment comes in and the next thing you know,
Okay,
at
that's
6 a.m. every morning, I hear people drilling.
That's interesting you say that because my brother took me to an area outside of Castle Rock and it's exactly as I'm describing. In fact, it was this area. And we got up on a hill because we were walking and I looked down and it was a valley of sorts. And there were just a few sprinkle of houses around this. We're talking miles of green. And I said to my brother, who owns this?
Yeah.
I said, is this privately owned? I said, do you think they'll ever sell it? Because this could easily get destroyed. So the fact that you just said that, it was exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
Because it's happening everywhere. So putting $1 million into a piece of property in that area could very well lend itself to not being what you originally purchased because you've got a developer building 60 or 70 houses right behind you on the mountain.
Well, that's the thing.
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
it's like it seems very much like an area where if you're a developer with a wad of cash in your pocket, you're going to get your plans approved, and the next thing you know, a community of 70 houses or whatever has been greenlit, and now all of a sudden, and it's like why? If I'm trying to get away from people moving out of LA, like if I don't want my neighbors 12 feet away from me in the next house, why would I ever move to Castle Rock? It shows no signs of slowing.
That is true. Okay, you're 100% right. I read an article like about a month ago, and since we were in Colorado, of course, everything comes up on your Google feed, and it was talking about the projection of all cities, Castle Rock, and how they project to have another, I think it was like 4% growth. Like that's a lot, 4%. So if you do 4% of 90,000 people, that's another 3,200 coming in just a year. They're expecting like in a year or something like that. I'm like, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of homes that are going to be built in what area?
There's going to come a point, I feel, just from what I've seen there. So my 2 visits to Castle Rock span 15 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So in the 2 times I've been there, I've seen growth to the point where I feel eventually the corridor between you're not going to know where Denver stops and where Colorado Springs begins because of everything that's being built up in that area in between.
That's so sad, but you're accurate. You're really accurate.
Yeah.
So when thinking about that, the Colorado you envision in your head that we saw 20 minutes outside of Castle Rock, you would seriously have to talk to city planners to see who owns that property, because you're laying down a lot of money to have a certain aesthetic and it could be gone. And to your point, Castle Rock is not slowing down anytime soon. To the article I read, it's not slowing down anytime soon. So just know that you're going to a city that is excited about growth, that is moving toward growth. So it might not be the Colorado of your dreams if you're looking for space and a house tucked away in the mountains. I know that those cities are probably out there.
Yeah.
It's just not Castle Rock.
No, I mean, for my money, I would prefer to just move. At that point, I would just move to Denver and live in a nice neighborhood in Denver and have everything at my fingertips. I'm sorry. I would prefer it because then you have, you don't have the hour-long drive to a football or basketball game. You don't have, like, now all of a sudden I could probably just get on public transportation for what I'm getting. I'm not talking about the 10 or 15 acres outside of Castle
I know
Rock.
what you're talking about.
I'm saying if I were living in a subdivision in Castle Rock, I would just, at that point, I'd be like, you know what, just move me to Denver. I'll walk down to the corner and get coffee. I don't have to get in my car. It's, to me, everybody has their own thing. I know plenty of people, like if you saw, I know there are plenty of people that see Castle Rock and would be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it is in some regards. To me, it just sounds like hell to have to get into my car and go get coffee or whatever that I can find in a city readily if I just walk outside my front door.
Well, you couldn't afford Denver because it's even more expensive than Castle Rock.
True.
And the houses, you would get a little space and you would have a city to be readily available for you, but you wouldn't have quite the same downtown home aesthetic.
No, I get it.
As Castle Rock.
I totally
like you
get
know
it.
that, right? Like it's
you would not have
different-
the same access to nature. And
you would not.
And
you'd have to drive.
In fairness,
like really drive.
I'm sure there are people in Castle Rock like, are you kidding me? I would take downtown Castle Rock over Denver anytime. I understand that. I'm just saying, for me personally, like if I'm getting in your car, if I'm approaching an urban environment, then just put me in an urban environment. I don't want the in between. You know what I mean?
I like the in between.
You do.
I actually do. Like, I like the idea of having a city nearby, but I'm not like trenched in that city. I like having a little more space. So I don't mind the in between at all. Castle Rock.
But you're not getting space in Castle Rock.
More than I would Denver.
Depending on where you buy. I'm talking about the developments. Like you're not getting a ton of space.
Oh, in those developments, no. But I'd live in a neighborhood.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. Like that's what we're talking about.
The new developments. I'm not talking about
absolutely.
In my head, when I think of buying a home in Castle Rock,
yeah, you're thinking. Of you're thinking of your ranch on the way to Larkspur. I'm not talking about that.
I'm talking about my brother's neighborhood.
Okay.
That's even more space in those developments.
It is
because those developments.
Sure.
We're talking about. My brother has a 12,000 square foot lot. Those developments. 5,000. It is all house.
Yeah, it's all house.
So I would take my brother's neighborhood.
Agreed. I would too, if given both options. I'm just saying, for that amount of money, I would rather just live in some other town and have even more space. That's all. Well, your brother's neighborhood is fine. The the 12,000 square foot lot is probably the least that you and I would want to purchase.
Oh yeah,
in terms of square footage.
Right, but we're talking Castle Rock versus Denver, and I don't know. So now you're mentioning a different city altogether. You said I would go somewhere else. I thought we were just talking about Castle Rock and Denver.
I don't know. I think you could probably get an 8,000 or 10,000 square foot lot. You'd probably find exactly what we have.
Yeah, in Denver.
What we had in LA in Denver.
But it's going to be more than Castle Rock. You know that, right? Because Denver's more expensive.
But I do know there are pockets where we could afford to actually buy a house in Denver. I don't want to move there. I don't want to live in a big city. But
if you were going to pick the two, you'd pick Denver. I would pick Castle Rock. I would pick the in between. You're like, let's go urban all the way. I'm not going to deal with an in between when I have to fight traffic already. Blah blah blah. Right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I just don't want to get in my car for every little stupid thing that I need. It's like at that point,
you would.
It's
Castle Rock. Unless you live near the downtown, you're right. Unless you live near the main street downtown. You have to get in your car and drive.
I mean, think about the houses around all the cities that you and I have in our top 5.
Yeah.
There are plenty of little community things here and there, like little pockets of restaurants or stores or whatever that you can go to. Salt Lake City has more.
Yeah.
I know it's a bigger city or whatever, but it's like pick one neighborhood in Salt Lake City and it's got more to offer than those subdivisions have. You know what I mean?
I know. So you're saying you'd find that pocket in Denver.
I either want rural or I want city. I don't want the suburbs.
Okay, so Castle Rock's in between. So, all right, so are you out of Castle Rock?
I think it's pretty clear at this point I am out. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I can't afford it. I mean, I just can't afford it.
I mean, but would you if you could? You can't afford Savannah either, and you love Savannah.
I know. I would want to make Savannah work.
You can't afford Bernie, and you love Bernie.
I did. There's the winters. I can't do the winters. Yeah. And you know what? All those outdoorsy people, I'm not that. Like I like to go out for a hike and this, that. They're just not it's not my lifestyle.
You're not going to be whitewater rafting on the Gorge River.
No, Colorado's not my lifestyle. So I'm out for winter. I'm out because they're not my people. I'm out because it's expensive.
You don't smoke nearly enough weed.
I smoke zero weed. I smoke zero weed.
So you won't be taking advantage of those amenities either.
If you don't know,
you drink zero beer, you smoke zero weed, no breweries, you don't drink coffee, you don't smoke weed. Yeah, I guess I would say Colorado's not really for you.
I should go to Provo, Utah.
You should go to Provo, Utah. You would be a great Mormon wife to some man.
I would. I just don't want to share him with like other women. That's like, you know how I feel about that.
Plus you got to like spit out a lot more kids.
Oh yeah, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
I'm not doing that.
All right.
But anyway, so, oh yeah. And if you have never heard our weed debate, check out our Nothing Got Solved on YouTube. He brings up weed and I just start laughing because
that was definitely a callback to that episode.
Yeah. So check that out.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, I think that does it for Castle Rock. I'm good. Are you good?
I'm great. Yeah. We loved Castle Rock. It's a great place to visit. My brother should sell his home. He's sitting on a gold mine.
But I'd never want to live there.
But I'd never want to live there.
I hate it when people say that.
I know. I love it, but I never want to live there. No, I couldn't afford to live there. And the winters are a little cold. So if my brother will sell his house that he's sitting on and we could all buy a piece of property somewhere where the weather's a little bit nicer, I'm all for it.
All right, so that's our update on Castle Rock, Colorado. If you're into the suburban lifestyle, you got a lot of strollers to push around, it probably is the place for you, to be fair. We're not in that phase of our lives, so for that reason, we're both out. But it's a nice place to visit. I just wouldn't want to live there.
You just said what you hate people say.
I hate it when people say that. I do. I know I'm such a hypocrite in this moment. Anyway, I think that's it.
All right, empty nest, full tank.
See you guys next week.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.